Hello, neighbor. I'm Robert Burns, and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And you have previously, sir, seen that we have 7 plaintiffs who have sued the Louisiana State Police Commission, and would let everybody know that there was a court hearing today, Monday, June 17th, before Judge Chip Moore. And we're going to tell y'all what happened at this court hearing, but first let me introduce everybody. This is Chief Sanau. This is Miss Rita McDonald. This is Belinda Parker Brown. This is Mr. Tim Holmes, and this is Mr. Charlie Square. These are 5 of the 7 plaintiffs who filed suit today. And we had the hearing today. As most everyone would know, there was a peremptory exception of no cause of action that was filed by the Police Commission, specifically Attorney Lenore Feeney. If you want to get straight to the chase, let me just tell you that you are looking at the prevailers of today's court hearing. So if you want the short and sweet, I just gave it to you. But I want to get comments from as many people, and hopefully everybody will make a little comment. I know Belinda's not going to be shy. So let me just very quickly tell you what happened in court. The attorney for the State Police Commission, Ms. Lenore Feeney, she argued that it would be difficult for these plaintiffs, who you're looking at, to be able to establish that any meeting took place, that any discussions of the letter that went out to Colin Sims on January the 20th, and that they would have difficulty proving that there was a quorum present. Belinda Parker Brown then spoke. It was her turn. And she said, Your Honor, I think my opposition memorandum, which we have previously provided, kind of speaks for itself. But she did make one interesting point, and then she rested. She said, I really do believe that if they had consulted with their attorney prior to sending this letter out, the letter in all likelihood never would have gone out. The judge took about 4 or 5 minutes looking over all of the different filings from this court proceeding, and then he said basically that, look, there are the signatures of all 7 members of this State Police Commission at the bottom of the letter. And he said, so it would be kind of difficult to believe that there were not discussions amongst these members. And he said, whenever a peremptory exception is put before the court is duty bound to view any area of ambiguity in the light most favorable to the plaintiffs, which would be the folks who are standing in front of me. And he therefore said, for those reasons, I am denying the peremptory exception. So congratulations to all 5 of you. And I'll let y'all now chime in, and then we'll talk about where things go from here. So who wants to speak first?
It's a start. I'll start. It's a start. It's not the complete ending, but it is a start. But I want to ask the governor's office, and this is from my heart, if we sent you a letter asking did you sign that letterhead and you did not reply, my mama always told me that silence means consent. Did you sign that letter, Governor? And we want to know that, because this is very important on whose signature was on that letter, who agreed with that letter, because that means that was against the law.
Well, and I'll just say this, he clearly didn't sign it because it's permanently inputted into the letterhead. But I see what you're asking. You're saying, did you give the okay?
Yes.
Did you give the okay for this to go out?
Yes.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. Tuesday of last week, which is 6 days ago, I did reach out to the governor's office to see if in fact they wanted to say, yes, he gave his approval to this, or if, as you have alleged in your pleadings, that letter gave the unmistakable impression that the governor opposed Colin Sims's campaign. And so I asked, Governor Landry, did you oppose Colin Sims's campaign? And we got no reply back. So your point is, you're saying that silence means consent. All righty. So who wants to speak next?
I'm Rita McDonald, and my concern is I have seen what has been in court today and concerned about this agency. I'm also concerned about other Louisiana state agencies and what they do in this respect.
I understand. All right. I know you're never bashful, never shy, so.
First of all, Robert, I appreciate you very much in Sound Off Louisiana and being there to witness what happened in the court today. Yes, we did prevail because we feel as though the judge was very patient with us. We were running late. He also was a very honorable judge and took his time to read our memorandum, and he ruled in our favor to not have this dismissed because it's very serious. But most importantly, I'm concerned about the fact that this is a blatant misuse of taxpayers' money again. I'm pretty sure that it probably had cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for that attorney to appear when we know that the Louisiana State Commission was wrong in what they did. And my question was also came out in court today that, you know, we were that the attorney did not have any knowledge of them sending this letter, what their motivation for sending this letter out in the first place was all about, except for interfering in a full-blown campaign that they did not have no authority whatsoever to interfere in. So to tell, the taxpayers that there was no meeting, that there was no secret meeting, it's just a blatant lie, and so we as the public want our voices to be heard. We felt like that should have they did not have no reason whatsoever not to put it on the agenda, not to tell their attorney about it so that she could have told them, that they did not have jurisdiction. They did not have the authority to interject themselves into a full-blown campaign and put it on the commission's letterhead and also with the governor's seal on it. And I, just in favor of the government, I mean, our governor, Jeff Landry, did you know about this? Would they be so blatantly bold to put your name on something that you don't know anything about? That's the reason why we're saying that we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior. This is corruption. It is wrong. They have taken an oath to serve the people, and it's obvious that they have their own personal gain. They have their own personal interests. They're doing whatever they want to do, and we saying, get rid of this commission. We calling for all of them to resign because this is totally unacceptable. Thank you, Robert.
You're quite welcome. And let me ask you a quick follow-up. As you're aware, your husband, Carl Brown, addressed the State Police Commission, and he read off the response of the Colin Sims campaign about the letter, and it basically asserted that one member in particular, Jared Caruso Ricky, appears to have engaged in constitutional violations as well as LSPC rule violations. He lives in St. Tammany Parish. He's got quite a history in St. Tammany Parish. So would I assume that your sentiments about everybody who became involved in this resigning would apply triple as much for Mr. Ricky?
Absolutely, yes. And and I want to say that they all have been caught. It's wrong. And when you caught with your draws down like that, take your lick. And this is the problem. Don't waste any more of taxpayers' money on something that you've been caught in the wrong. Now, had they not been caught, Robert, this is what another big concern. And I want some of, the other parties to iterate on the fact that, what's going on behind closed doors. How they're blatantly leaving the public out of these meetings and not giving us the opportunity to weigh in and, voice our concerns.
Well, how about you, Mr. Holmes? You want to chime in?
Oh, again, since you announced my name, Mr. Holmes. But yeah, I'm glad that we won and that, this is a beginning to expose of what's going on in the state of Louisiana. So once we catch them with their draws down, we have to continue to expose the rest of the group. It's like a tree that has more than one root. We got to cut all root in order to remove that tree of corruption.
I understand. How about you, Mr. Square?
That foundation.
That foundation.
I'm Charlie Square, and my concern is, the same as my other members, is that we deserve, as citizens of Louisiana, to be represented, in a way that, we pay to be represented and we vote to be represented, and the people that we put in place should represent us in a way that takes care of us and our families and our properties. And if you can't do that, then we need to put someone else in their place.
I understand. Well, and nobody can deny that obviously this letter was intended to benefit the Vincent Wynn campaign in his bid to unseat DA Colin Sims. The results of the election, one might argue that it had the opposite effect, because Mr. Sims won in not just a landslide, but it was a complete cascading of all the roadway around it. 69 to 31 is a pretty resounding win. So do y'all believe that ironically this activity actually...
Robert, I want to speak to that, and I'm pretty sure some of my other constituents too. But, this right here is, this commission, my grandmother taught me that the leadership is, what goes on in the head trickle down through the whole body.
Sure.
And this is what's happening on this commission. The state police officers, are out of control. I mean, they're supposed to be there monitoring them and making sure that they're in line and following their rules and procedures. But now we got the problem where if this whole commission is out of order, this commission is corrupt, this commission are not following their own rules, then how are you going to keep our state troopers in line with what they're supposed to be doing on their job if you're corrupt?
Makes sense.
And if you're a public official, why would you get involved in politics? That is supposed to be behind closed doors for public officials. Now, civilians, private people, yes. But you are a public official representing the people, so you should not be involved in politics at all.
Well, correct. And not only is it just a generalized you should not be, it's actually a very clear-cut violation of the Louisiana Constitution when you sit on this commission.
Yes.
If they weren't on the commission, it'd be a different story. And certainly if they had acted in individual capacities, it might have gotten a little bit more iffy. You made an excellent point. You asked the judge if you could follow up with something, and you said this was sent out on LSPC letterhead.
Absolutely.
So they may want to try to assert that, hey, we had no jurisdiction, this, that, and the other, but the reality is you took the time to place all of this on letterhead, and it was signed by 7 then members of the commission. So I have to believe when the judge said, and yet we're supposed to assume there were no discussion, and that goes back to what was said in the pleadings, is that the court doesn't have to accept this as fact. You just exercise common sense.
And the judge did that.
Yes,
he exercised his common sense, and I'm pretty sure he read the document. But most important, Robert, that we know what their intent was. They was supporting the opponent of Colin Sims, which was Vincent Wynn, and they wanted to do whatever they could do to interrupt and interfere with the campaign, so that they guy can win. I guess that's what they wanted, but it didn't happen that way because they did it wrong. It was wrong what they did.
Yeah, it actually backfired.
Yes,
the letter
right.
Probably, I feel certain, energized the Sims campaign.
Yes.
I'm getting nothing but head shakings in agreement of that, because in these off elections, attendance is not through the roof.
Right.
It's not like there was a presidential race on the ballot. Well, although there was, but that was a foregone conclusion of who would get each nomination. So your point's well taken. In a low turnout election, something like this can have a big impact. So I want to ask one last thing, and then we'll consider this a wrap. Anybody can make some closing statements if you'd like. Very briefly, so the audience will know, this is where we stand. The peremptory exception was denied, which means the litigation can proceed forward. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but may it be a safe assumption at this point that you will commence with discovery to include interrogatories, requests for admissions of fact, and most importantly, production of documents. And I would assume, again, because in reading it, the opposition memorandum, you said one of the first things you would ask for are the emails that went out entailing the distribution of this letter. Because that's where you prove the communications.
Right.
So may I assume that's going to be priority number 1 going forward?
Well, I did let the judge know that we are very well prepared to prove that, all of the facts that this was a secret meeting. And yes, the discovery will prove that, and we will put forth every effort to get that documentation, that information. And then I really want to see, Robert, you know, everything that transpired in the emails, in the conversations, phone calls, whatever it is, that everything that happened, especially when they put this on the letterhead, because I feel like, you know, the attorney, you know, that she could not have known anything about this. So were there any were there any communication with their attorney?
Right.
You know, I would like to see if there's any discovery concerning that.
Well, and that's a good point, and I'm sure you can always pose the question of, did you consult with your attorney on this? Obviously, you'll have to make it clear I'm not asking for what got said, because that's attorney-client privileged. But to me, it shouldn't be attorney-client privilege. The simple question,
Right.
Did you communicate? I'm not asking you what the communications entailed. That's a yes or no question. Did you communicate? And that ought to be very revealing, because I have video of Chairman Ulyss Simeon saying how much he appreciates the attorney, because he said, quote, I call on her more than anybody else on this commission.
Absolutely.
So why in this particular instance, again, it's a hypothetical right now, but why didn't you call on her for this?
Absolutely.
So,
and we know that there's other similar incidents in regards to Colonel Davis, when they was trying to get an investigation on him, and they were told that they did not have authority to do so.
well, they actually, let me make one small correction there.
Okay.
They openly questioned whether they had that authority.
Right.
So they could have easily placed this matter on the agenda
absolutely.
and said, okay, we got to get resolved. Do we have jurisdiction to send this out? I can just tell you right now that never would have happened, because they didn't want this letter to see the light of day for
Right.
John Q. Public. Okay.
You know, I just want to say that's a feature that you put out a while back, Robert, that I referred to, that was very helpful to us in this lawsuit as well. So we intend to, you know, do some more research in regards to how that came about, and they were told that they did not have the jurisdiction to move forward with that.
Yes,
So-
they said we're going to have to research it, and all I can tell you is it was deferred until the next meeting, and that it never resurfaced. So I have to assume that they got told you don't have jurisdiction to investigate the colonel. But
we appreciate your work, and that you're very thorough, and that you have been very helpful in regards to the future and the information that we can bring about this lawsuit, and that we don't want any more of our taxpayers' money wasted on attorney fees. We don't want, to keep on, we're not here to get, I think it's like whatever the
$100 per meeting
$100
per plaintiff.
Right. We're not here to get that, we're here to prove the fact that you cannot do this.
Right.
You cannot openly violate our public meetings law, okay, and do whatever you want to do. You can't do that. So don't waste any more of the taxpayers' money, on this, I think this law firm,
Taylor Porter,
is a very, high profile,
extremely high profile. They have represented
expensive. I'm sorry, cut that out. Extremely expensive law firm that's costing a lot of money. When you are wrong, you were caught wrong with your drawers down.
Boy, she's going to drive that point home.
I was going to repeat what she said. Please stop wasting the taxpayers' money.
Very good.
Right.
All right. I want to thank everyone. I will again congratulate you, because I can tell you I've been in a number of court hearings, and it's very rare. I'm just telling you, it's very rare when you're going up against a state agency, which y'all were doing. It's very rare to walk away with even a small victory. Y'all did that today, so you have my respect and
Can you say that we won against this at pro se?
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody knows. Everybody here is pro se. So let me just briefly say, that's about like Appalachian State going into Tiger Stadium, and everybody's running, okay, is it going to be a 50-point win for LSU? Is it going to be a 60-point win? And little Appalachian State just kind of strutted into Tiger Stadium, squeaked out a win, and said, we're heading back home. So
because the truth will stand on its own two legs, and what we're here is about is the truth, and making sure that this does not go on in our government, that it will not continue to go on in our government. We will not tolerate it.
Well, congratulations, and I look forward to us progressing further into this.
Have you, or can you give me a little bit of info as far as the new superintendent goes?
I'm sorry, I didn't make that out.
As far as the new superintendent of the state police, have you heard anything about him? Is he?
Well, all you have to do is look at some of my prior features. It goes to without saying I am not a fan of Colonel Hodges. I guess you flipped the process and interviewed me, and that's okay. But I am not a fan of Colonel Hodges. We do share the same first name, Robert, but I am not a fan. He was not a very popular pick, but even more unpopular than him being selected as colonel was the chief of staff, Frank Besson, who has, I will tell you, no respect amongst a vast swath of Louisiana state troopers. So it's not, in my opinion, a good situation. And they have just hired a $1,000 an hour attorney. I believe that is because they expect to be sued by the U.S. Department of Justice, but I've already published that in a feature. But the short answer to your question is, he and I have gotten off to a very bad foot, and quite frankly, I don't see that changing, but the ball's in his court on that.
Right.
You know, I can only do what I can do. I'm willing to be as positive about things as I possibly can, but when you block me on getting public records requests, and when you echo sentiments, and I'm just going to say cutting deals. Well, now that you've asked the question, let me very briefly. Late last year, we were told there was not an opening for a police commission hearing until August of this year.
Right.
We haven't had the first hearing, okay, ever since he became colonel. The reason for that is I've been told he is, quote, cutting deals, unquote. I'll have to make public records requests to see all the different agreements that have been come to that the police commission did have to ratify. But it troubles me that all of these situations existed and now they're magically going away. So I guess I owe you a debt of thanks for asking a question. I got to get up on my soapbox for a while. So. All righty, folks, we'll call this a wrap. See you again on Sound Off Louisiana real soon.